Hello there. Welcome to the Caleb Landis Show. This may be our best show yet. Even though we're dealing with some uncomfortable realities today, we do reality here on this show. And when reality is uncomfortable, I'm going to let you know about it. When reality is positive and encouraging, I'm going to let you know about it. And today we have three very uncomfortable realities that you need to recognize and deal with and respond to appropriately. Don't worry, that's why I'm here. Uncomfortable reality number one, our elections are vulnerable to fraud. We have more current events, more headlines, more facts, more reality demonstrating this today. Number two, the American left has a cultural problem with violence. We'll talk about that. Something we have talked about a lot, but it keeps staying in the news because American leftists keep doing violent things. So, you deserve to hear the truth. That is what you will hear here. Uncomfortable reality number three is a new truth that we will expound a little bit more fully at the end of the show. This new truth is that the socialists are coming, and you can't escape it by living in rural America. And I've got stories from the field, both in the headlines and the national news, and both in that I see in my own experience as Erie County Coordinator for Early Vote Action in the field every day that demonstrate these things. But before we get there, a quick Trump win. Earlier this month, U.S. jobless claims dropped by 22,000. Which was the biggest weekly drop we have seen in 57 years. Almost twice my lifetime. So if nothing is happening, I'll take a lot more of nothing. Thank you very much. Now, on to uncomfortable truth number one. Our elections are vulnerable to fraud. You've heard about the New Jersey voter fraud story. The governor of New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill, discussed this issue, kind of told on herself, I guess, shortly after Trump's election integrity speech. She admitted that there were 6,600 people illegally registered to vote in the state of New Jersey, not a very big state, alone. And they know of nearly 400 of them who cast a vote before this situation was caught and corrected. Now, the New Jersey governor says this happened by mistake. The way that she said this happened was that there was a software error at a New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission, right? I assume that's kind of like our DMVs here in Pennsylvania. There was a computer glitch, according to the New Jersey governor, who is a Democrat. This computer glitch sent the registration information to the voter registration office from people who had actually checked, no, I am not a citizen, no, I don't want to register to vote. Now, this is a good example of why we shouldn't have automatic voter registration at the DMV to begin with. Because it is a system that is easy to manipulate when all you have to do is check boxes, yes or no. And it's a similar process. We have a similar process here in Pennsylvania. Now, the Democrat governor of New Jersey claims that this issue was caught and corrected in 2024. But as I said, almost 400 of them already cast a vote at least once before being removed. The software company that Mikey Sherrill blames the glitch on pushed back on this. They said, no, our system worked. It recorded the fact that these people said no, that the response was that they were not citizens, that these people were being honest about that. And the state officials had access to this data. They could have seen this data. They should have seen this data. It is their responsibility to catch and correct that. So who is at fault? I don't really know, but I am deeply concerned that 6,600 people in any state in the union can illegally register to vote, and that 400 of them took the opportunity to illegally vote. Whether it's by accident or not doesn't really concern me. what matters to me is the fact that this does happen. What you should be seeing if you are following the facts about election integrity in our country is that a case is building that our elections are not secure enough as they currently exist. I mean, if 6,600 accidental illegal voter registrations does not give you cause for concern and make you think that we should take steps to secure our elections, then I don't know what will. If you still, after all this, if you still feel that our elections are perfectly safe, if you're not concerned about this at all, you may want to take a look at your own political bias to see how much of that is affecting your perception of reality. You might just be against anything that Trump wants more than you are in favor of taking logical steps to ensure the security of our elections. That's not the only example I have from just the past week. My boss, Scott Pressler from Early Vote Action, has been making headlines a lot recently about the non-juror lists in Pennsylvania. These are lists that only citizens are supposed to be on, right? Because only citizens are supposed to be selected to serve on a jury in Pennsylvania. Lists exist, and according to state law, they are available for public inspection. And on these lists are names of people who were selected to be put onto into a jury list, supposed to be citizens only, who were flagged and rejected, disqualified as jurors, right? Because of their citizenship status. Now, why do we care if that many people who are supposed to be citizens are being selected for a jury list for citizens only and then kicked off? Well, we are concerned because of what names Pennsylvania uses, what lists Pennsylvania uses to formulate their jury duty lists. Okay, so a jury duty list, a jury duty pool, if you will, is put together from a couple of different sources in Pennsylvania. One place that Pennsylvania pulls from to create their citizens only jurors list is those who hold driver's licenses. That is a problem in Pennsylvania because a driver's license number is considered sufficient identification to register to vote in Pennsylvania. I handle these forms all the time. I can show you right on the form where it says, under ID, asks you for a driver's license number. And if only a driver's license number is present, they will process the application. That is the rule in Pennsylvania. The problem is, in Pennsylvania, non-citizens are getting driver's licenses and driver's license numbers. We know that because people are being pulled from the driver's license list and added to the jury duty list and are later disqualified from jury duty because they're non-citizens. Well, if they're non-citizens, should they really be getting the driver's license if a driver's license is all you need to register to vote in Pennsylvania? Folks, we are begging for our elections to be stolen. It doesn't make any sense. Now, it's not just driver's license holders that names are supposed to be randomly selected from to create this jury duty list. In fact, each county in Pennsylvania is supposed to make its own master list of prospective jurors. You can look this up for yourself. Find out this information the same way I do. Grok, right? AI, it's not hard. Look this up for yourself. Each county in Pennsylvania makes its own master list of potential jurors who are supposed to be citizens, right? That list, some of them comes from the driver's license holders, but all registered voters in each county are supposed to be included on the potential jury duty list. Okay, so if we are pulling names from a list of people that are supposed to be put together from driver's license holders and registered voters, among a couple other things, why do we keep finding so many non-citizens on a list of people that are built from lists of registered voters and driver's license holders who can register to vote if they have a driver's license number. You see the concern there? Why are there so many non-citizens on a list that is built from those names? And these numbers are high, folks. Now, I will admit that many counties are really dragging their feet. Many counties are really resisting handing over the list of disqualified jurors who are non-citizens to Scott and to us here at Early Vote Action. But some of them aren't because they can't help it. It is state law. They have to allow us make these lists available for public inspection. They have to allow us to see it. In Chester County alone, there were 3,566 non-citizens who got summoned for jury duty, but were disqualified from jury duty because they are non-citizens. And they get on this. Why? Why are there that many? Why are there that many non-citizens on a list that's supposed to be created from largely citizens, people who are already registered to vote, and people who already have a driver's license so that they can register to vote? I mean, technically, it would still be illegal, but there's nothing stopping them, right? Because they have the proper identification. And how many of these people have already cast a vote or are already registered to vote? We simply don't know yet. And that's my point. We don't know. We don't know about the security of our elections. Our experts keep telling us that they are fine and dandy, hunky-dory, but why would we believe them? You want to talk about not believing experts? Some breaking news just this morning or late yesterday, just before we came, we don't come on the air. We record these lessons ahead of time. Sorry. Just before we recorded this episode here today on Tuesday, Dr. Fauci's diary, a couple thousand or 1,100 or something pages of the diary, right? And people are already asking the question, why did we ever listen to this guy? Should we ever listen to experts ever again here in the United States? I haven't looked at the diary yet. I haven't looked into that issue yet. But I saw enough of Dr. Fauci without his diary to know that he is not a trustworthy person. And for years, he was essentially God in the United States when it came to public health policy. The same people from the same world, the Dr. Fauci's of voter registration and voter operations in our country and in our counties and in our states, are telling us that our elections are secure. Now, I will tell you, I know a lot of people who work in the election system industry. I mean, it's not an industry, but they help execute our elections. A lot of those people are extremely trustworthy. I've met them. I know them. But the fact of the matter is I don't know them all. And I don't know that they are all trustworthy. And I know that many of them aren't. And even if that weren't the case, I know that the opportunity is wide open, built into the system to make fraud easy. And that is the real problem that we have. Our problem probably isn't the kind of people who are running our elections. A lot of them are good people. A bunch of them aren't. But the only fix is securing it on an institutional level. Now, one potential pushback that a lot of people have when we talk about the number of illegal non-citizens who are registered to vote or easily have the opportunity and likely, wide open opportunity to register to vote, is that they may, like those 6,600 who registered to vote in New Jersey accidentally. They didn't even mean to do it. They were registered even though they said they were non-citizens. How many of those 6,600 voted, right? Well, in this case, according to the Democrat governor, about 400 of them did. But let me tell you, you don't have to. Having the faulty registration available is enough to create a vulnerability, right? So let's just say I'm Bobby I was going to say bag of donuts from the Dan Bongino show, but I don't want to steal his line. I'm Joe Smith, right? From Ecuador. I know there aren't too many Joe Smiths in Ecuador, but I'm Jose Smith from Ecuador, and I come here and somebody registers me to vote, maybe at the DMV, right? Or I don't understand the laws. Maybe I don't know English, but I am not intentionally registering myself to vote, but I become registered to vote, right? Well, Jose Smith is never going to go and vote because he doesn't even realize that he is registered to vote, right? We know that this happens. So does that mean the illegal registration of Jose Smith does not pose a threat to our elections because he's never going to show up and vote? Maybe he registers to vote, or he gets accidentally registered to vote, then he finds out he can't vote because he's a non-citizen, so he never goes to vote, but he doesn't know that he has to take himself off the voter rolls, right? So he's that registration will just sit there, right, and not cause any damage to the integrity of our elections. That's the argument that a lot of people are making. Well, they may be illegally registered to vote, but most of them don't actually vote because if they do, they're risking being caught, they're going to go to jail. That is false, right? Because here's what happens, or what can happen. In Pennsylvania, if you are already registered to vote and you only have to show your voter registration card the first time you vote. Then all you have to do is show up in elections after that, show up and sign next to your name. Well, if a name exists on the voter roll, you can sign it. No matter who you are, you can sign that name and go ahead and cast a vote. And somebody has to catch the fact that you are not actually who you are. You don't actually represent the identity that you're signing next to. And much more likely is the problem of the no excuse mail-in voting. This would be my guess is how fraud happens the most, at least in Pennsylvania. Illegal registrations are created, particularly in a place like Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or Erie, where there are everything is in city and local and county governments are dominated by Democrats, right? Illegal registrations are created, whether in the name of a illegal immigrant or not. And then somebody goes online and requests a early ballot, a mail-in ballot, in the name of this illegal registration, fills it out, and mails it back without Jose Smith ever seeing it. He's not expecting it to come. It's being intercepted, or they're updating the address. They already have the information from the illegal registration, right? And registrations are created in the names of people who are not going to be looking for a mail-in ballot, who are not going to be following up on a ballot that they don't expect to be coming. And then these ballots are intercepted and mailed right back, right? That's a very simple system to create fraud in our elections. Scott is exposing the fact that there are non-citizens who were already on the jury duty list here in Pennsylvania, thousands of them in some counties. This is a problem. Now, maybe you still don't find this convincing, right? Maybe you still are not, you're sitting there and you're saying to me or to yourself, this is not enough to convince me that elections have been flipped because of voter fraud. This is all like peripheral stuff around the edges that's not going to make a difference. Okay, listen, I am not here to convince you that any specific election was flipped by voter fraud, right? I'm not trying to convince you that 2020, that Trump won in 2020, for example. As you know, if you've listened to the show, I believe he did, but that is not my purpose, right? My purpose is to show you that there are objective facts, objective reasons that should make you concerned about the security of our election. Because if in one election 400 non-citizens vote, that could easily flip something as large as a federal representative, a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. 400 votes is more than enough to do that in many places. So what I am telling, I'm not trying to sell you on the fact that 2020 was stolen, right? What I'm trying to sell you on is that there are lots of good and reasonable reasons to believe that there are vulnerabilities in our election system. And it is not too much to ask between non-citizens registering and voting in New Jersey, non-citizens showing up on the juror list and being found on the non-juror list in Pennsylvania, thousands of them. And then the stuff that we've talked about last week from the president's speech, the amount of interference China is running in our elections, the way the last deep state administrative officials tried to cover this up during a Republican presidency. Trump 1.0 tried to hide it from the president. Now, thousands of citizens that we know of showing up as registered to vote, hundreds of them not voting, or hundreds of them casting votes in New Jersey, and these non-juror lists in Pennsylvania. I am telling you that there are good reasons to be concerned, significantly concerned. I am pointing out to you the holes in our election system, and I'm telling you that it is not too much to ask that people prove their citizenship when they register to vote, and that they use photo ID when they actually cast their vote. That is not an unreasonable step to take, considering the vulnerabilities that we know we have here in the United States. The Save America Act is a great solution. Why would you not want security for your elections? Everyone who needs to get one can get an ID in the United States. Everyone who needs to do so can prove their citizenship in the United States. It may be tricky or challenging or a headache for some people, but it can be done. And it is not an unreasonably impossible process to do so, particularly when you consider the vast majority of voters in the United States. It is not too much to ask when we know we have significant vulnerabilities in our elections. Interestingly enough, in the past 2 weeks since Scott and Early Vote Action has began his pressure and exposure campaign on these non-juror lists in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Department of State has done 2 separate purges of voters, either taking them from active to inactive status or removing them, I assume, from the voter rolls completely. And when you add up the changes that those 2 voter rolls have made, the active voter advantage for Democrats in Pennsylvania has shrunk by almost 10,000 votes. Interesting. Every time we take a step to secure our elections here in Pennsylvania, the Democrats suffer the most. By the way, I don't care. I don't care if they're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, or whoever they are. If they should not be voting in the United States, I don't want them registered. But I find it interesting that it keeps hurting Democrats the most. Okay, uncomfortable truth number 2. The American left has a cultural problem. A cultural problem with political violence. Remember that attacker at 25 Federal Plaza in New York? That was just about a week ago. This last episode, I wasn't comfortable saying for sure what his motivations were. Now I am. He carried anti-ICE signage with him to the building where he threw fireworks and poured gasoline and lit it on fire. He admitted that he was there targeting ICE. And can you guess which political party he is registered as? Camera Kid. Yes, I have a camera kid today. Can you guess what his political party is?
Democrat.
Democrat is correct. What do you know? Another leftist committing acts of terrorism and political violence against ICE and the Trump administration. By the way, this registered Democrat admitted to authorities he was okay with hurting or killing people in order to make his point, which is exactly my point. In fact, I could rest my case right there, but I'm not going to, because I have yet more examples from last week alone of how violent the American left has become, not just on the fringes. I was at a tabling event in Crawford County, Firemen's Festival in Cambridge Springs, Crawford County, Pennsylvania. Had a little booth set up there to register voters, get people to early voting, whatever they need to cast their vote. And I have an engagement tool. It's a little whiteboard with a question on it. This question on my whiteboard said, do you support ICE? And I draw voters' attention to it. They can come up and tally yes or no. Yes, I support ICE. No, I don't. It helps bring people to the table. It's an engagement tool. It gives me a chance to understand who I'm talking to right as the conversation begins, right? It also honks off a bunch of Democrats. That's not the intention necessarily, but it happens. And it happened in Cambridge Springs. There was a couple, a group of rather elderly Democrats who, pretty common in my rural area. Many of the Democrats in my area are elderly. Not really apropos of anything, but that was true. They were so mad, I guess, that so many people had tallied yes, that they support ICE. And they were just furious at ICE in general. I know this because of what they said, right? I heard them say this. As he was, the gentleman who spoke up the most, as he was marking his tally that no, I don't support ICE, and walking away from my table, he said this, quote, "There's no way ICE should be beating people up and shooting them to round them up." And he starts to walk away. It's the fault of that idiot president. He's the one who should be shot, if you ask me. Perfect microcosm of the violence that the American left is both creating and approving of and committing. All right, that one paragraph explains the entire violent strategy of the American left right now. First, they present false facts, and people believe them. This gentleman believed with all his heart that ICE is out there randomly beating people up and shooting people. Now, you can find footage of people on ICE shoving agitators away from them so that they can arrest the criminal. You can find videos out there on ICE of ICE tackling people who have committed crimes and who are under arrest. But this is not beating people up. This is doing their job. This is what all law enforcement does when people resist arrest or when agitators obstruct justice and interfere with law enforcement. This is how it should be when someone is resisting arrest or interfering with law enforcement. But the leftist media takes that and creates the narrative that that the ICE is beating people up. ICE has shot a few people. It's a tragic situation. And it has been very clearly in self-defense as people are obstructing justice and interfering with law enforcement. But from this tragic circumstance, the left creates a fact for the people that believe them, that ICE is out there shooting people and beating people up just so that it is easier for them to take the illegals away. So once they create that narrative, it generates a response, a hatred for ICE and the idiot president, as the gentleman said, which is a problem because more and more people on the American left are acting on their hatred with the words and statements such as 8647 or he's the one who should be shot. Speaking of the sitting president of the United States, he's the one who should be shot, which, even more tragically, doesn't stop at words with more and more leftists. It ends in violent behaviors, setting fires in front of federal buildings, attempting to drive over or drive through or wrestle ICE officers, shooting Charlie Kirk, shooting Donald Trump. And then, after these violent acts are done, the same media that started the process with the false facts carefully crafts their reporting on the issue to make it seem as little of a deal as possible, either by obscuring the fact that it was a leftist who did it, or obscuring how violent it was, like the initial headlines from CNN after the Trump assassination attempt in Butler. You remember what those initial headlines said? They said, "Loud noises heard at Trump rally. A man was dead. 2 other people were shot. Well, 3 other people were shot. President Trump had his ear grazed by the bullet." Downplaying the violence, right? That's one strategy. Downplaying the fact that it is a leftist who did it. Ignoring the violence entirely. Or, most frighteningly of all, talking about how violence against ICE or Trump is understandable. I can't tell you how many leftist panels I have heard, or experts I have heard, who goes on these panels on cable news network, and it's like, it may be time to think about why so many people hate ICE so much. They really are really nasty. We can understand why people are trying to murder them. And then they continue to call them Nazis, or continue to call them murderers, or continue to argue that they're beating up old people or shooting people in the streets, to continue to fuel and continue to generate the process, furthering the idea that ICE or Trump deserve to die. This is intentional, this is strategic, and it is systemic on the American left. Look for it, and you will see it. It is not hard to find the leftist wackos who are using violence, and it is not hard to find the support that they are getting from the leftist media. Finally, uncomfortable fact number 3, the socialists are coming. And living in rural America is not enough to insulate yourself from them. Same festival, different day, last week. Cambridge Springs, Crawford County, Pennsylvania. Americana Redneck Patriot Area 101, right? I'm at the Republican Party table, and a gentleman from the Democrat Party table comes over to say hi. Uncommon, but not unprecedented. But what was interesting about this gentleman is that he was an open socialist. He was a member of the Democrat Socialists of America. Now, I do need to point out that this guy was not being crazy. This guy was not being violent. He was not being argumentative. In fact, he was being oddly friendly. He pointed out how he was pro-gun, which is bizarre because every socialist regime ever has taken guns away from citizens. They kind of have to, because they have to force you at gunpoint to be socialist. And they have to kill you if you aren't socialist or communist, which is interchangeable as far as I'm concerned. Let me pause and stop there, because a lot of leftists try to say socialism and communism are not the same thing. Listen, communism and socialism end at the same point. The government is in charge of everything, and they tell you that they're going to fix the problems that you have seen in your culture. And then they don't, and millions of people die, many of them directly murdered by the communists. Socialism at times can be a little bit softer, but the end point of socialism is essentially the same thing as communism: government authoritarian control. And that only works if the citizens don't have guns. So I'm not sure how pro-gun socialism works, how it happens, right? That's what he said. He also said that he believes that we live in the best freaking country on earth. That's how he put it. And if that is the case, why are you a member of the Democrat Socialists of America who openly seek the complete destruction of our system of government as it exists right now? If we're the best freaking country on earth, why do we want to tear down things like the presidency and the Supreme Court and replace it with a fundamentally different form of government? This is what Democrat Socialists of America say. Why would he say that? He also styled socialism as very working class, very much in favor of the common man, which is universal in socialism. But he pointed out very specifically that that is very closely connected to the MAGA movement, very working class, which was the point that he kept circling back to. How MAGA and Democrat Socialists of America want the same thing. And we are really not that different. And that we are trying to address the same problems in our society. And listen, Democrat Socialists of America from the Firemen's Festival in Cambridge Springs, Pennsylvania, if you're listening to this episode, my intention here is not to call you a liar, but I suspect that you may have been there as a plant. As a bit of propaganda. I believe that this guy either had marching orders or was smart enough to know on his own the clientele that he was talking to, that he was in a group of patriotic, gun-loving, blue-collar Americans, and that the only chance that he would have to even plant seeds to consider socialism is if he spoke like a gun-loving, patriotic, blue-collar American, and said that the Democrat Socialists of America believe in and value the things that patriotic, gun-loving, blue-collar Americans value. And that is where the propaganda, the deceptive part, really comes in. Because there are plenty of people who say they believe in socialism who want the same things as MAGA wants, or at least sees the same problems as MAGA does. But the difference is the solution. And the leaders of the DSA know it. And at one point in the conversation, he slipped up and exposed himself for and socialism for what it really is. The one thing that he was complaining about that DSA hates, that MAGA also hates, is the mainstream media, right? And how deceptive it is. True, right? That's a good point. If he's trying to build bridges between socialism and MAGA, right? Oh yeah, the media is a bunch of liars, right? Yeah. But at that point, he admitted what the solution the socialist wants to the problem. And that is where MAGA and socialism go like this. Total opposite directions. We may be looking at the same problem. Our solutions are exactly opposed to each other. What he said was, since the media is so bad, we need tighter government control. We need to tighten the screws of the government from the FCC on the media so the government can make sure that the media is not lying. And that is the exact opposite of the MAGA solution to a deceptive media. The MAGA solution to the deceptive media is free market. Capitalism, right? Alternative media, stuff like this podcast, X, Rush Limbaugh, he was alternative media in his day. Less control, less centralization. The socialist solution is more control, more power to the government, which, by the way, is just more of the system. That's the problem that MAGA is going to have with socialism. That your solution as a socialist is to give more power to the system. more power to the government that has created the very inequalities, the very problems that you want to address. But if my suspicions are right, friends, and this guy was there to be a sneaky ambassador for socialism, then you need to wake up. Whether or not he was intentionally doing this or not, this is what he was doing. He was trying to build bridges between MAGA and socialism, which is their exact opposites. And this is what socialists are doing all across the country. They are coming. And if they are already coming, already doing operational preparation of the environment in Crawford County, Pennsylvania, then there is nowhere in this country that is safe. Socialist influence cannot be avoided. It must be peacefully defeated at the ballot box and through public speaking out in the public arena. You can't hide from socialism. You have to peacefully beat it and peacefully toss it out of your country. If peacefully. If you would like to join me in doing this, you can find me on X and on Facebook. My name is Caleb Landis, Early Vote Action, Erie County. Thank you for watching our show today. You can like and subscribe and follow on Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. Share on social media with your friends. We will see you next time.